Welcome artists! In this video you will learn how to draw a grid. You will also learn how to use the grid method to improve your representational drawings. This is what the finished grid will look like. To get started, you'll need a few supplies. Make sure you have a pencil and a ruler and your drawing guide of the anime image you're trying to copy. Let's look at the ruler. We're going to be creating a 1-inch grid. That means these long lines next to the numbers are the lines you're going to use for your reference. The end of the ruler is inch 0. Make sure you line up the 0 side with the edge of your image. That should line up exactly. Now go to the number 1, the long line, and draw a little line as if you're continuing that ruler line onto your paper. Do the same thing for number 2, number 3, and number 4. The image is 5 inches long, so it should line up exactly with the 0 and the 5. Before we can create a line, we need 2 points. So we'll go down to the next box and do the same thing. Make sure you line up your 0 with the edge of the box. Go to the number 1, make a line, number 2, number 3, number 4. If you've taken geometry or used a ruler before, you know that you need 2 points to create a straight line. So now we're going to use the ruler to line up those 2 points that you just made and connect the dots. Find your first 2 dots. Take your time to make sure that the ruler is lined up exactly along the lines that you made. Holding the ruler firmly against the paper, draw your lines along the edge of the ruler. You've made a line now that's an inch away from the edge of your box. Go to the second pair of dots that you made and do the same thing. Hold your ruler firmly down and connect the dots. Repeat again for lines 3 and 4. Alright, we've now completed our first set of lines for the grid. But to create a grid, we need crossing lines that run perpendicular to these. So now turn the paper to the other side. Again, line up the 0 edge of your ruler with the other corner of the image and make your tick marks at every inch, which should be 1, 2, and 3. Remember, we need 2 points to make a straight line, so do the same thing along the bottom edge of your image. Line up the ruler, make marks for 1, 2, and 3. Rotate your paper back, and now just as we did before, we're going to use those points to connect the dots and draw our straight line. Now our first grid is complete. You have made a 1-inch grid. Now we need to copy those steps on the second rectangle. Line up the edge of your ruler with the edge of the rectangle. Make your marks at 1, 2, and 3. This is a 4-inch rectangle, so it should line up exactly. Go to the other side because what? We need 2 points to make a straight line. Mark our inches at 1, 2, and 3. Rotate the paper and connect the dots. This might seem a little bit tedious, but the more careful you are with this measurement step, the easier your drawing will be overall. The whole point of the grid method is that we're drawing the exact same squares in both rectangles, and we will use the positive and negative space created within to improve our drawing. So now the lines of our grid are complete, but we're going to add one more step to help us keep our lines in order when we start drawing. It can be helpful to label the vertical and horizontal squares of your grid to help make sure you're working on the right box when you come to your drawing. I like to label the top with A, B, C, D, and E, and the side with numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. You'll see how this can be helpful later. All right, now our grid is complete and we're ready to start drawing. Part 2. Now we'll learn how to use the grid method to improve our representational drawings. With our completed grid, we're now going to start transferring the information we see in the completed drawing into the blank rectangles below. It can be helpful to have 2 post-it notes because we want to focus in on just one square of the grid at a time. You'll place one post-it note along the edge of your first square. In my case, I chose E1, the top right corner, to begin with. Place the other post-it note along the other edge of the square. This helps us block out all the other information so that we can just zero in on this one bit of the drawing. Next, what I'm doing is marking the halfway point in each of the lines of the square. This is something that just I do because it helps me monitor the positive and negative space. I'm starting to look at the lines that I see within this square and transfer the information to the square below. I'm looking at where these lines intersect the outside lines of this box, and I'm looking at how far they go into the center of the box. It's important that at this stage I'm just very lightly sketching. I'm going really slowly, and if you could see my eyes, they're darting back and forth between the top drawing and the bottom that I'm working on. I'm closely observing. Remember, in this unit, we're talking about the powers of observation. The more you look, the more you see. So you need to spend at least as much time looking at the shapes you see above as you do drawing them in the square below. Slow and steady, but it pays off. Take the time to really observe the shapes that you're seeing. Here I'm noticing that the original line that I drew is a little bit off from the image on top. Again, now I'm looking at the positive and negative space, seeing how much distance there is between the line in the box and the line on the edge of the square. I'm still keeping my lines really light and sketchy. They're not clean and pretty because I'm just sketching. This is the very first step. I want to go through each box and try to get my lines in, and then I can step back and look at where I've made mistakes. Even just watching this video now, I'm seeing how that top squiggly, circly shape is a little bit different in my drawing than in the drawing above. Once you have all your lines sketched in, move your post-it notes to include the next block and continue on. Notice how I added 2 guide points for myself before I tried to draw the line. That technique of using guide points is called sighting. I'm sighting the distance between the top of the square and the line that I need to draw and creating myself a guide mark. Now I'm looking at this negative space up in the upper corner to see where my line should go. I see that my negative space is a little bit bigger than the original negative space in the actual drawing, so I can change my lines to match. The grid method is a very slow, precise process. It might seem tedious to some, but I promise it will help you improve your drawings. The whole process is meant to help you observe the positive and negative spaces, to really slow down and break apart an image into just lines and shapes, and to give you smaller pieces to work on so that you're not overwhelmed by the whole. Thanks for watching. By now you've learned how to draw a grid and how to use the grid method to improve your representational drawings. I can't wait to see what you create. Good luck.